I'm Ray, otherwise known as the Reverend from West Thebarton, the band. We are based in South Australia, and we've just got a new record out called Mongrel Australia. It came out a couple of weeks ago, but we're heading on the road, ready to take on all the East Coast cities in a few weeks.
Fantastic, mate. Shall I call you Ray or the Reverend? I'm confused now.
You can call me Ray, man.
Thanks, brother. So West Thebarton, as you say, released your second album, Mongrel Australia, back on March the 22nd. Like, I know it hasn't been out that long, mate, but how's it been received?
Oh yes, well, it's number one. It's been awesome to just be out there, to be honest, because we've been sort of writing and sitting on these songs and playing them live for a couple of years now with everything that's been going on. So just having it out there in the world has just been a huge sigh of a relief for us, and super anxious putting them out there and just seeing how they've been receptive. But so many people have, been telling us, how awesome it is to have a new record out there that they can listen from end to end. And also, there's been a bit of a change of tone on some of the songs on this record. We were in a bit of a different place on the second record compared to the first record. And so, some of the content and themes are a little bit different. And we've had a bunch of people reach out saying like, wow, this is awesome to hear some of the slower songs. Like we've got a song called Slow on there, which is, very stripped back. It's not very chainsaw to the throat West Thebarton like. But yeah, people are really loving it, which is awesome to hear, because that's, one of the things you always worry about as a musician is, your fans going to enjoy the stuff you put out.
Yeah, especially if it's a bit of a change up from the last album.
Yeah, definitely.
So actually, on that note, bro, like, is that something you discuss as a band? Like you mentioned, this album's a little bit different to your first one. So do you just have that chat and sort of say like, maybe we're going too far away from what fans would expect, or should we go here? And
I don't think we've ever had that chat. Like, the thing I love about being in West Them and everyone else in the band, I'll speak on their behalf, is everything seems to just happen pretty organically. Like, we never really sit down and have a meeting and say, oh, let's put all of our heads together and write a slow song tonight. But, typically one person comes with an idea, and that comes in some shape or form, and then it sort of goes through this West Them machine filter that spits it out at the end, and it's got input from everyone, and it's been molded and shifted into a different shape. And everything always seems to be organic. We never really sit down and say, oh, let's change this stuff, or be too worried about how it's going to be perceived. And I think that's one of the best things I really like about being in this band.
So say someone's never heard of the band before, bros. Pick 3 songs off this album for someone to listen to give them the best representation.
Okay, well, Desire, firstly, because I think they'll have the time of their life listening to it, and it'll make them want to take a little bit of a holiday down the coast and a few days off work to enjoy. I think Faceless, because that's a nice slow song, and that's probably got one of the best guitar solos we've ever put out, but also I think I've ever heard on any kind of popular rock track ever. And then Humble Heart. So Humble Heart is just classic West Them, buzzsaw right in your face. You can feel the saliva off of the person yelling, and it's just quintessential West Thebarton vibe.
Well, do you realise what you actually did there, mate? You went from one sentence saying that it's the best solo ever, and then the next sentence you're saying Humble Heart is the best song to listen to.
Whoops.
Moving on. So I also noticed that there's no song on the album called Mongrel Australia, which great title too, by the way, but there's no song called that on the album. So that obviously means there's a bit more significance to the title.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a song on the record called Modern Australia. And Modern Australia, funnily enough, that's actually Modern Australia Part 2. That's originally, it was Part 2. We had a Part 1, which had an awesome chorus, but the song just didn't fit together really well. So we dropped Part 1. We just had a song called Modern Australia. And then when we were talking about the record, we were sort of putting our heads together and talking about, what we should name. And, it always comes back to that conversation, like, what does this album mean to you? What do you think about? And, everyone in the band is so different. We're all such different people, but somehow it works. And so we always were obsessed with this kind of vision of a mongrel dog, like a little mixed breed dog, or, some kind of real mongrel. And then we had the song Modern Australia, and we thought, oh, well, that kind of defines us as people, and it defines what we're singing about and playing about on this record. So that's how Mongrel Australia became.
Very, very cool. Now, you sort of mentioned that this album is a little bit different sonically to your first one. So going a bit deeper now, bro, like how does Mongrel Australia differ to your debut album, Different Beings, being different musically?
Well, I think Different Beings was very, it was raw and energetic, and it captured us in our early 20s perfectly. Early 20s when you've got all the time in the world to make all the mistakes that you don't think are mistakes and all that sort of stuff. And then Mongrel Australia really is sort of where we're at now. We've evolved as people, as musicians, as everything really. And we're no longer, those happy-go-lucky party every single weekend kind of people. I'm not going to use the word mature, but we're sort of more well-rounded people. But I don't think that means that the music is that different. It's just, I guess, from the inside looking out, a lot of the themes we talk about on the record are a lot more focused and a lot more thoughtful than the first record, which was very like, slinging from your hips, gun shooter style.
You guys started out in Adelaide, mate, back in the mid 2010s. So what was the musical climate like down there at that time that gave birth to the band, and where did you fit in initially?
Yeah, so West Thebarton was born from a few different bands that, I was in a different band. A few of the other guys were in a band called Horror My Friend. There were 2 or 3 other bands, and we were sort of, we'd always play together at different pubs, different venues. We'd always be on support for bigger bands that came through, and we just became really close mates through that. And we thought, oh, let's just have a jam and see what happens. And so, because we didn't want to leave anyone out, we had 7 people in a room, just all playing different instruments. And it was more so about, kind of having fun for us than really writing music at the time. I remember our first few gigs were pretty crap because we didn't really know what we were doing as a 7-piece, but we were just having so much fun that we didn't really want to give it up. And then suddenly, this 7-piece monster Frankenstein of a band suddenly become everyone's main focus instead of the original bands we came from. But at the time in Adelaide, there's always been a lot of great music going on, but sort of around that time was when, if you hit a certain popularity level, you'd nip off to the East Coast. So you'd go to Sydney or Melbourne particularly, and that's how you kind of move on in your musical career. And we really wanted to push against that. And, it was interesting. I always remember getting really pissed off when some of my favorite local bands, who I'd love seeing like once a month or, even more sometimes, would go interstate, and then I'd, never really see them again until they coming through on album tour, release tour, support tour, or whatever. And so I think we sort of had a bit of a chip on our shoulder about that. And so that's the reason why we wanted to stick around and really, try to drive the scene there. And it kind of helped at the time. We had, bands coming up like Bad Dreams, who, very similar kinds of music, and it was awesome to play shows together and sort of leverage off of each other's kind of crave for the Adelaide music scene at the time.
Yeah, sweet. Now, you've got an album launch tour coming up as well, mate, starting in Adelaide on June the 21st, before going through Melbourne, Brisbane, and finishing in Sydney on June the 29th. Like, sounds like fun. What do you got in store for us on that tour?
Yeah, I mean, we can't wait to get on the road. Playing live is something that we all do. That's why we all do this whole music thing. We love playing shows. I love the face of seeing people, excited and going crazy when we're playing live. So, we can't wait to get back on the tour. But I think these shows are going to be awesome. It's our first, big run in quite a while. So, we're going to be playing all the hits, obviously, from the previous record, but we can't wait to introduce the new songs live as well, because we've been playing songs off the new record in bits and pieces in some of our earlier shows on the East Coast and interstate. But this time, they've been out in the world. People have been listening to them. So now hopefully there's a bit of familiarity to them so that we can really, work them into our set. So yeah, can't wait to play them. And there might be a couple of special surprise covers and guests as well.
Nice. And where can people find out more information or grab themselves a ticket?
Oh, well, just jump on our Instagram, our Facebook, our socials, westthebarton.com as well. That's where you can kind of find everything. Yeah, hopefully we see some of your listeners at some of the shows coming up.
Fantastic, bro. Well, I'll be in Japan when you get to Brisbane. Otherwise, I would have been there for sure. But
Oh,
hope it
bugger.
bro, and I'll catch you on the next trip around.
Yeah, for sure, man.